This is my journey into discovering metal bands from Spain. This is part of a series I've been doing. The first country I did was Greece, followed by Italy, then the Netherlands. Now I'm in Spain. I will be doing it the way I've done it with the other videos. Since this is the first video, I chose 10 bands just based on a Google search. I will be listening to one album from each band and giving you my thoughts and impressions. Please comment below and recommend some more Spanish bands so I can do a follow-up. But in the meantime, let me get started. The first band I have is Mago de Oz, a very popular folk metal band from Spain. I had known about this band for a long time. I discovered them back in the 90s, the first time I lived in Mexico. I never listened to any of their albums in full, except for the most recent one called Alicia en el Metaverso, so I decided to revisit it for the purposes of this video. It's been about a year since I listened to it. I went back to it. It's kind of an interesting album as they open with these 12-minute track. It mixes different genres from folk metal to death metal. The lyrics are in Spanish, but I don't mind as I speak Spanish. I think I like it more than I did when I first listened to it. They have lots of different influences. The music is very fun. It's also kind of relaxing to listen to the folk music parts. It's a concept album, which is a modern take on the Alice in Wonderland story. It's basically about a 16-year-old transgender girl who's at a therapy session. She receives a text via WhatsApp, and that sends her down the rabbit hole. I would have to do a full video to go through the entire story, but I thought it was a fun album. There are a lot of songs that have fast power metal style drum beats, as well as different genres incorporated into the sound. So overall, it's a pretty cool album. Next band I have is called Saratoga. They are a metal band from Madrid. They formed in 1992. They changed members many times over the years. The band has released 14 studio albums. I listened to their most recent album called Eternus from 2018. This album has 10 tracks. It was 45 minutes long. This was also my first time listening to this band. I had never heard of them before. This album had songs with lyrics in Spanish. They reminded me a lot of the 80s Iron Maiden in terms of the music and song structures, but the vocalist has his own style. The music definitely has this 80s heavy metal throwback style. I also heard a few heavier guitar riffs that were close to thrash metal, and they sprinkle in these death metal vocals here and there. The music covers lots of different areas of the metal spectrum. Songs have lots of melodic guitar solos. Not everything sounded the same though. Some songs went into more of a speed metal direction. I would say in general most of the songs had a fast pace and lots of energy. The next band I have is called Tierra Santa, which means Holy Land. They formed in 1997. They went under the name Privacy before that. And they are a heavy metal band and power metal band. They have 13 full-length albums. I listened to the most recent one, Un Viaje Épico, which means an epic voyage. This was released not too long ago on November 29, 2024. The album has 10 tracks. It was 39 minutes long. Lyrics are also in Spanish, as would most bands on the list today. The music sounds a lot like fantasy-based heavy metal with some power metal influences. There are some big orchestral sections. The vocals are very melodic. Some of the songs are more upbeat and have these power metal style guitar riffs that they go along with these galloping rhythms. Other songs are more technical guitar riffs and a faster pace. Other songs sound like straightforward power metal with keyboards and fast drum beats. And other tracks have more of an atmospheric and slower sections with softer vocals. There are songs that sound more like the hard rock bands of the 80s. Overall, one of those bands that can play different styles, but at the same time, they have a very cohesive sound. So the music is accessible enough for the non-metal fan, so it's a band you should check out. Next band is Warcry, and this band formed in 1992. They've been active on and off over the years. They're a heavy metal and power metal band, a little similar to some of the bands I've already mentioned, such as Tierra Santa and Saratoga. They have 10 albums. I listened to the most recent one called Demon, released in 2022. It has 12 tracks. It was 54 minutes long. The lyrics also in Spanish. Music has many of the same components as the previous band Tierra Santa. There's some epic instrumental sections. The music is probably lighter, more and upbeat than the aforementioned bands. They use a lot of keyboards in addition to the vocals, and they're very melodic. The bass guitar has a lot of a presence in the songs. There were a few songs that had darker tones and some faster rhythms, but they also had a few softer ballads with violins and some 80s glam metal guitar riffs. I think the bass guitar sounds very good in all these songs. There were a few instances where they sounded more like modern metal or even kind of new metal. Other tracks have more of a theatrical feel. Overall, not too bad, not much different than some of the other bands that I spoke about though. Next band I have is called Avalanch. This is another heavy metal and power metal band. This one has some progressive elements as well. They formed in 1989 under the name Speed Demons, and they've been active off and on over the years. This band has some members who played with Saratoga, Mago de Oz, and Warcry, and you can see a lot of these bands are interconnected. They have 15 albums. I listened to the most recent album, El Lemma de los Dioses, which is from 2023. They have a compilation album called 30th Anniversary that's actually coming out on January 24th, which is going to be in a few days after I post this video. But this album, El Lemma de los Dioses, has 10 tracks. It's 43 minutes long. Has a sound similar to some of the bands I just mentioned. I would say this one has keyboards, lots of vocals, very bigger sound, lots of guitars, play those galloping rhythms. Keyboards are in the forefront on most of the songs, and they sound a little bit more like a progressive metal band as well. Some of the other songs have big guitar riffs and some heavier ones, and a lot of songs have melodic lead guitar melodies, and the songs have different pacings. They go from fast, mid-pace, slow, and they get heavy on a few songs. But in general, another band very accessible for the non-metal fan. But now it's time that we get like really heavy. So this band is called Angelus Apatrida, and so far, most of the bands I mentioned were kind of like more accessible power metal, heavy metal, a little on the lighter side. But this is a heavier band. They are pure thrash metal. They've been active since the year 2000. They have 8 albums. I listened to the most recent one called Aftermath. This was released in 2023. It had 12 tracks. It was an hour long. There were also 2 live tracks. They are a thrash band, a mix of the modern thrash bands like Havoc and Warbringer. And I heard influences from classic thrash, mostly Testament and Sepultura. Music is fast-paced, lots of riffs and varying tempos, some powerful drumming. The album has a few guests. We have Jamie Josta on one track, Pablo Garcia on another track. He actually happens to be the guitar player from Warcry. And you can see that a lot of these bands from Spain do collaborate with each other. I don't really have much more to say about it. It's just some killer thrash. You got the occasional short instrumental sections with the clean guitars, but I definitely recommend this if you're into thrash metal. The next band I have is called Sôber. This one was a little different, more of an alternative rock band with some metal influence as well. They've been active from 1994 to 2005, and they took a 5-year break, and they've been active since 2010. The band is named after the Tool song Sôber, and I would even say I could hear some Tool influences in their songs. I listened to the most recent studio album called Elegía. This album has 11 tracks. It was 54 minutes long. The band has a lot of electronic elements in their music and some heavier guitar riffs. They sound more like a modern metal band. Songs are filled with lots of melodic guitars, and some of the songs have darker tones. There are also ballads and softer singing with acoustic guitars. There are times when they have songs that have angrier tones. Some of the songs have slower rhythms, and there's some of these big and ominous guitar riffs. Also songs that reminded me of the aforementioned band Tool, but more like their later stuff. The band has some progressive influence as well. Overall, pretty cool band. Probably the most unique band out of all the bands I will cover in this video. Next band I have is called Dark Moor. This is a power metal band. They've been active since 1993. They have 11 albums. I listened to the most recent one, Origins, from 2018. The album has 11 tracks. It was 41 minutes long. Their sound has evolved over the years. This album had more of a Celtic and folk metal influence. Music was very upbeat and energetic. There were fast-paced rhythms, big vocals. There were lots of melodic guitars. Other tracks sounded like medieval minstrel music. Other tracks sounded more straightforward, heavy metal, but with melodic vocals. And there were tracks that sounded more like power metal. They had some ballads. They had faster songs. Some of the tracks had more of a big arena rock quality with the guitars and keyboards in the forefront. And there were others with groovy guitar riffs. They did a few softer ballads with acoustic guitars and stringed instruments, and overall not too bad, but it's one of those bands that's kind of on the lighter side, so if you don't mind that. Next band is called Saurom. This is another folk metal band. They write about fantasy and Lord of the Rings. They've been active since 1996. They have 11 albums. I listened to the most recent one called El Pájaro Fantasma from 2023. This had 10 tracks. It was 39 minutes long. It had a folk rock sound with some big guitar riffs and orchestral elements. There were also heavy metal style guitar riffs and folk melodies. Even though it's a lot of folk music here, there's still some songs where they got pretty heavy. Other songs sounded like straightforward power metal with the fast rhythms, and they also played a few soft ballads with piano playing and acoustic guitars. Basically, the album had a wide variety of songs. Some of it sounded like folk metal with those medieval sounding melodies, others sounded like just heavy rock music, the kind you would hear on the radio. Overall, not too bad. If you don't mind some softer and poppier moments, it's still considered a metal album. I have one more band called Hamlet. I'm ending off with a band that's on the heavier side, as many of the bands I talked about were a little more accessible. This band started as a heavy metal band, but they evolved into a groove metal and nu metal band. They've been active since 1986. They have 12 albums. I listened to the most recent one called Berlin. The album had 11 tracks. It was 41 minutes long. The album is filled with heavy groove metal style guitar riffs, as well as those big and powerful, almost industrial style drum beats. The band has really harsh vocals and brutal screams. Some songs move at a slower pace, which is more of a doom metal, but the guitars have lots of feedback. The vocals are aggressive, sometimes they sound like hardcore punk, and there are guitar riffs that sometimes they sound like thrash metal. Lots of these songs have these thick, distorted bass guitars, and I heard different types of influences, everything from nu metal to industrial. There are times they even get slower and play more like a sludge metal type of sound. So overall, another band, very unique, also one of the heaviest bands on my list today. So that is all. Give me some more recommendations for bands from Spain. I can do a follow-up video. In the meantime, check out the playlist. It has all the other episodes of bands for other countries are covered, which are Greece, Italy, and the Netherlands. Thanks for watching. Give the video a like. It helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Please subscribe if you're not already. I do rock and metal reviews, rankings, and more. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next one.